Greetings, creeps, and welcome back to Hallowscream, radio for home haunters, and especially the UK Halloween prop makers group on Facebook. So it's been a little while since we've had anything from Hallowscream, I know. Last year I think I started these in May, and we're September this year, so that's pretty poor. But as you'll be able to tell, change in format. We're going to go audio this time, rather than me rambling for half an hour in a live stream. I think it just works better for everyone, and it's so much more easier for me to edit and get these out to you. So we're going to go this way for now, and see how it goes. And with this new format comes a whole new sort of setup for the show. We have a bunch of cool new segments for you to listen to. We're going to have movie reviews, haunting inspirations, haunt tips, and props for props, as well as maybe another few segments. We're going to have plenty to give you, and we're aiming for a half-hour show, maybe longer, but it won't be shorter. So yes, welcome back to Hallowscream, and if there is anything you think that can be done to improve the show, then please let me know, because I am always looking to improve it. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight in and go to our haunting inspirations.
Haunting inspirations.
Welcome to our first segment, Haunting Inspirations, where each week we'll be looking at several home haunts from the UK and the US to hopefully inspire your sick minds and encourage you to push the boundaries of your haunts. Now, with this becoming an audio format, we will be providing links for all of these in the description, or if we end up on Spotify and whatnot, the show notes. So do check out and do make sure to follow all the links, because everything we're going to describe to you here is truly worth checking out just to get a little bit of inspiration. We're going to range from some quite simple setups that just to show you how you can make use of a small space, that kind of thing, to some of the grandest things you've ever seen that are almost, while they are all home haunts, they're almost on like a theme park level. So we're going to get a bit insane. So as I say, be sure to check out all the links in the description to see what's possible when we put our deranged little minds to it. And with that, we're going to talk about our first haunt for today, which is from a YouTube channel by someone called Sean Rouse. The video comes all the way back from 2018. I don't know Sean, I don't know if he's even in our group, but I discovered this through a search on YouTube for UK home haunts, which doesn't come up with very much, so I think we all need to be putting videos on YouTube. Show the world what the UK's got. But as I say, our first haunt is from Sean Rouse on YouTube in a video from 2018. The first minute or so is Sean talking about his preparations for Halloween, and before we see both a daytime and nighttime view of his haunt setup. It's only small, but he does a really good job with it. I'm sure my wife said something like that once. Anyway, it's definitely worth checking out, and it gives you a really good look at what you can do with a smaller front garden space. Next up, we have the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Next, we have 2019's Wendigo by Murder House Productions. These guys are basically where we'd all love to be. They started with home haunts and prop building, and now run professional level horror walkthroughs each year. They build props, and they've reached the point of having their own company completely based around haunts. This video shows the amazing things you can do using a large space in a garage. There are truly incredible props and sets in this video, including caves built from paper and even a creature's lair that has been made to look like a grain silo. The whole thing is crazy. There's a massive setup for what is essentially a driveway and a garage, but they do an incredible job. The whole thing just is really professionally done, and I think it just Obviously, it takes money to do these things, but it just shows what can be done if we are able to do so. So I really recommend checking that one out. The particular video that I'm sharing in the description is a video from Epic Home Haunts, and it's 13 minutes long, but it's such a great insight to what could be done with a home haunt. So really, really, I cannot recommend checking it out enough. Now, the last one in today's Haunting Inspirations is another crazy one. It's again kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's actually a dark ride or ghost train to most of us, but this is a ghost train that has been built in a backyard, so I can't recommend checking it out enough. It is a little different because it's not technically a home haunt and it is a dark ride or ghost train again to us Brits, but yeah, it's a ghost train built in a back garden, so you really have to see it. It's called The Monsters of Mayhem, and yeah, it's nuts. I've not got a huge amount to say on it, other than it's totally worth watching just to get you excited and get those creative ideas crawling around that brain of yours. This video it's another one from Epic Home Haunts, and you're probably going to hear a lot of Epic Home Haunts throughout these kind of segments, but yeah, it's really, really worth checking out. And yeah, you'll see some crazy things. The one thing I will say is it just shows you the innovation that we can use when building our haunts. The ride itself, the carts, what would normally be like little carts for us, they're actually built from mobility scooters. That the chap has put runners on the bottom that run along a rail, and yeah, it's crazy. You really need to watch the video and check it out because it goes into quite a lot of detail on how he does it, and yeah, it's really, really worth checking. Again, all the links are in the description for these, and it's worth watching. I cannot recommend them enough. And that was it for this week's Haunting Inspirations. I really can't recommend checking out the videos enough. I know I've said it several times, but you just have to, yeah, you have to see it for yourself. And be sure to come back next week for 3 more spectacular home haunts. Haunt tips. Welcome to Haunt Tips, where each week we're going to be looking at different areas of the home haunt and what we can do to improve them and prepare ourselves. And this first week we're going to be talking about our workspace. Your workspace is essentially where the magic happens. It's where you're going to be making your props and set pieces and anything else you might need for the big night. You might be using your dining room or kitchen table, or you may well have a workspace either in your garden or a space like a garage or a workshop outbuilding. Now, if you're using any of these kind of spaces, a good workspace is key. I'm using a sturdy old garden table for my workspace, for example. Somewhere that gives you plenty of room to place your props, reach your tools, and move around without too much trouble. A key part of your workspace is your tools, and we have a list of key items that you may need. If you're like me, then you may just be pulling apart old stuff and making it all fit together the way you need it to. Bit of a bodge job, but if that's the case, then making sure you have a good variety of nails and screws is key. You can buy different sets of screws and nails from anywhere that sells that kind of thing, from the likes of Wilkinson's all the way to B&Q. I tend to buy a box of each every year, and it keeps me topped up with different shapes and sizes, so it's worth doing. Making sure you have a good drill with a decent variety of drill bits is always a good plan too. If you're building larger wooden props and set pieces, or anything really, if you've got a good drill with decent bits, you'll be able to use it on metal, on foam, on a wide variety of stuff. So yeah, it's another key item. And though a lot of our horror props are wonky on purpose, at spirit level, ooh, spooky, it's always useful to make sure everything is just as wonky or straight as you need it to be. I personally prefer a magnetic one, which is really useful when working with metal, as it frees up both hands. It's that simple, really. Make sure you have some good clamps, preferably ratchet clamps. They are key if you're building something like a coffin where you may need to clamp some glued pieces together, for example. And much like the drill, a good screwdriver or a good screwdriver set with plenty of interchangeable bits and heads is a must-have for any building project. I don't know where my haunt would be without my decent screwdriver, to be honest. Got quite chunky screwdriver, loads and loads of different heads. I tend to pick up more each year, but yeah, most of my stuff wouldn't be built without it, so I cannot tell you enough how key that is. And if you're going to be doing a lot of woodwork, then you may want to pick up a strong magnet to help with any drop nails and screws, because if you're like me and working in the garden, for example, dropped nails and screws can be a real bugger to find. So a good magnet that you can just whack on a string and just hover over the grass to pick up what you need. Ideal. Duct tape, electrical tape, masking tape, and many other tapes. All the tapes. Tape in general, especially duct tape, is a really useful thing to have. I'm particularly fond of Gorilla Tape, but obviously different tapes for different things. They're amazing for last minute fixes and that sort of thing, so always ideal to have a good drawer of various tapes. This one isn't a must-have, but if you're using something like rope, maybe you're making vines or something, then a lighter, one of the sort of grill lighters with the long neck, is an ideal item to keep in your workspace, to singe up the ends and just sort of melt them together. Stops your ropes from fraying and things and makes them last a little longer. And lastly for this list, a decent hot glue gun, plenty of glue sticks. Yeah, cannot recommend them enough. It's key for any home haunter really. I don't know about you, but I've built plenty of my props with layers and layers of hot glue. So bear that in mind. And while not key to the things you're building, a couple of pairs of decent work gloves, protective goggles, and maybe even a breathing mask if you're sanding, that kind of thing, are good to keep on hand. It's great fun building for our favourite holiday, but it's also important that we protect ourselves. Hopefully this list will help prepare your workspace and help you to build some terrifying creations. I've probably missed several things on here, and I'm sure some of you will tell me that. I hope you tell me that, because maybe I can add them to a future list. But for now, that's it for this week's Haunt Tips.
Wretched Review.
Like many of us in the UK Halloween prop makers group, I love a fun, schlocky, old school kind of silly horror movie, and that's exactly what Benny Loves You puts on the table. There will be a spoiler or two ahead, so if you want to check it out spoiler free, then go find Benny Loves You and watch it before listening to this segment.
This is Benny. As long as you have him by your side, nothing can ever hurt you.
Not even the demons in the hallway.
Apart from them.
I'm in the area with a buyer on Monday. It's get quite lonely. It's more of a family home.
I have to get this finished.
Lots of people are saying you're already finished.
You haven't evolved. I can't send my creative director to New York in a Goonies t-shirt.
Can't be bargained with. Can't be reasoned with. He doesn't feel pity or remorse. He absolutely will not stop until you are dead.
What's this got to do with me?
Do you want another cuppa?
Go on then.
a teddy.
It's that age-old story. Boy has a childhood cuddly toy. Boy grows up loving that cuddly toy. Boy considers the toy his best friend. Boy grows up but keeps the toy in his room. The grown-up boy gets a job inspired by the adventures he had with that toy. Boy meets girl. Boy decides it's time to grow up and starts packing away his old toys. Toy comes to life. Toy goes on a killing spree. Okay, so it's not your normal age-old story, but it is a fun one. The film follows main character Jack, a 30-something living at home with his mum and dad, and he works for a toy company designing toys, but he is always overlooked for promotions because he doesn't come across as professional or smart as his other workmates. Shit goes sideways though when his parents both die while preparing Jack's surprise birthday party, and he gets demoted at work. Life continues to spiral as now he lives alone and the bills just keep coming. But a new female employee at work, Dawn, gets Jack's attention. In a bid to impress Dawn and save his family home from being seized by the bank, Jack decides it's time to grow up. He boxes up a bunch of old toys and some other belongings, including his favourite stuffed friend Benny, with a plan to chuck them out, but Benny comes to life and begins a killing spree. And we discover that Benny is actually quite jealous, particularly of those closest to Jack. The story of Benny Loves You is a bit mad, to say the least. There's no real reason or story point that brings Benny to life, but he seems to wake up from sheer jealousy. Things do start off a bit slow, and it seems to take the actors a little bit of time to actually become comfortable in their roles, but a good chunk of the first half hour or so is kind of wasted on trying to drum it home that Jack is meant to be a loser. Things do progress well, and the actors do become way more comfortable in the role, and you kind of notice the acting steps up in the second half of the film. Things just get wilder as the movie goes on, and the last 30 minutes of the movie just dive into sheer chaos in a completely good way. It just goes balls to the wall crazy with the action. The ending of the movie is pretty nuts too, and though it's not a big budget movie, I found myself really enjoying Benny Loves You. Most of the effects, both practical and digital, are really good. The digital stuff is a little bit noticeable. It is a lower budget movie, but it's not bad enough that it takes you out of the movie at all. Overall, I did really enjoy this movie. I've watched it a few times. I discovered it last year, around Halloween last year, and I've watched it 3 or 4 times since then because it's just a good, fun, silly film, and I'd recommend watching it. It gets a solid 3.5 out of 5 from me. It's just an enjoyable bit of silly horror comedy and definitely worth a watch. So, if you can, look up Benny Loves You. I'm sure there are plenty of ways to watch it these days, so do check it out. Most of these horror movie reviews, I'm trying to sort of pick films that can help inspire us a little bit, that kind of thing, but this one I just wanted to do because it's one I discovered last year and it's just a lot of fun and silliness. It's not much in the way of inspiration. Maybe some of the kills might could encourage you with some bits and bobs, but yeah, do check it out. That's Benny Loves You. It's worth checking out. And that's it for this week's horror review. Props for props. Welcome, dear listeners, to Props for Props, where each week we'll be choosing one of the amazing props built by the members of the UK Halloween Prop Makers group. This week we're going back to 2019 and taking a look at the amazing cemetery gates as built by Peter Lawrence. Peter didn't start building his gates until September of 2019, but if you find the pictures in the group, you'll see that even under the pressure of time, he achieved something amazing. The gates are built from a bunch of materials, including plywood, insulation foam, and black poly piping that was used for the gate's ironwork. Pete constructed the gates by building a timber frame for the columns. The frames were then covered in plywood, and the plywood was then covered in the insulation foam. And then came what Peter calls the tedious job of turning the insulation foam into stones that adorn the columns. Peter stresses that wearing a mask, goggles, and gloves is a must if you don't want to catch the itch. Not that itch, you twisted freaks. The foam dust is really irritating on the skin. get your minds out of the gutter. Especially you, Jimmy. If you've seen Peter's cemetery gates, you'll know he has some phenomenal detailing, with the columns being topped by a pair of gargoyles. Oh, and did I mention the gates have their own prisoners? Each column has a full-size skeleton trapped behind bars. I heard rumours they were a pair of the older kids that act too cool for Halloween, but Pete gets a bit quiet when you ask him about this. It's never been confirmed. We even have lighting added to the gates, with spotlights being present behind each of the gargoyles. I happen to know that Peter is creating instructions for these gates, so be sure to look out for them in the near future. I've seen a first draft, and Peter has done an awesome job. It's so easy to follow that even I could do it, and I've spent the last 10 months as a real-life zombie. So, if you haven't already, search Peter Lawrence's name in the group, and find his posts with pictures of these amazing cemetery gates. They're a truly fantastic piece of work, and very deserving of the first build we check out in Props for Props. This is normally where we'd cut to the next segment, but I just wanted to take a minute to talk to Peter Lawrence directly. I know you've not really been feeling it this year, Pete, and who could blame you? With the last couple of years we've had, I don't know that many of us are, but I hope you can get back into it in time for the big day, my friend. Your work on the props for your haunt is genuinely inspirational, and you have a true talent for bringing life back to the undead. So keep at it, Pete. I speak for the whole group when I say we can't wait to see what you come up with next. Now, with all that being said, be sure to come back next week and see what creepy creation we pick next in Props for Props.
Terrifying tutorials.
Welcome to Terrifying Tutorials, where each week I'll be providing you with a list of amazing tutorials that have been tailored to a particular theme. For our first list, we're taking a look at how you can create some gruesome ghosts for your home haunt. As with our other lists, all the links to the listed videos will be in the description. We're starting with a tutorial by Stilt Beast Studios, with a tutorial for what I'd call a more unconventional ghost prop. Sheets of polyethylene foam are the main thing used in this build, and to begin with, you may wonder how this could make a good looking prop, but by the end of the video, you'll see it actually comes out really well. There's a real home haunter vibe to this video, and it really is worth checking out. Next we have a tutorial from YouTube channel I'm Not Bored, I'm Creative. In this tutorial, they build a ghost with cling film and tape, and I must stress that you need the patience of a saint for this build. It's a lot of fiddling with pieces of cling film and small bits of tape, and if you're like me, then you really don't have the patience for it. But if you're of a calmer demeanour, then this could be the ghost build for you. You get a really great looking ghost that looks amazing with the right lighting. Our third terrifying tutorial is a home haunt classic. Haunted House 1408 has a great flying crank ghost tutorial. I'd say this one is a little more advanced, just because there is electronic motors involved. I'm not currently brave enough to try it myself, though a flying crank ghost is something that I've really wanted to build for a long time, so hopefully I'll be brave enough soon. The only thing missing from this video is how to wire up the motor, so if you are going to give this one a try, be sure to find a good tutorial on wiring up the motor if you don't already know what you're doing. Now for a not very scary ghost. This is a more classic white sheep, black eyes kind of looking, kid-friendly ghost. This one is a really simple build with a fun and easy to follow tutorial from YouTube channel Evan and Caitlin. So be sure to check this one out if you're looking for that kind of more kid-friendly style ghost for your haunt. Lastly, we have another old school Halloween staple, the chicken wire ghost. This is a nice easy short tutorial from Scary Halloween. That's scary spelled S-C-A-R-R-I-E. I'm guessing it's a lady named Carrie, but with those American pronunciations, sounds like Carrie. So, Scary Halloween it is. Either way, this is a nice, very easy build. It's literally chicken wire and paint. This particular tutorial adds a little more with some nice detailing. I recommend checking it out for a really simple, old school and effective home haunter's ghost. And that's it for this week's list of terrifying tutorials. Hopefully you'll find something here you can build from, and I look forward to seeing what your twisted minds come up with. Next week, it's all about foam, and we'll be checking out some great spooky foam builds, so be sure to creep your way back here for more terrifying tutorials. And look at that, we've reached the end of this week's Hallowscream. I think we're actually a little under what I intended. I was hoping for half an hour. I think we're more 25 minutes. But help me grow it, guys. That's what I want, and I hope that's what you guys would like to see, is the show get better. So anything you can think of, or if you want to get involved, please let me know, because it would be so much easier for me if there was other people involved. If anyone does want to get involved, take over one of the segments. If you think you can add something to a segment, maybe even come up with a new segment. That's a lot of segments. Either way, do get in touch, because I would love to have you on board. But first, before I go, I need to give a big shout out to James McClardy and Stuart Granger, because the two of them have really pushed me to sort of get back into the Halloween spirit this year, because I was really struggling, and it's literally only been the last few weeks, month, maybe a little over, that I've been getting back into Halloween this year. I was considering not even doing the haunt this year, so thank you guys for really pushing me and getting me back into it. And now all that mushy stuff's out of the way, we really are at the end of this week's Hallowscream. So thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on YouTube, then be sure to subscribe and like and all that stuff. If you are listening on a podcast app or website or whatever, then again, follow us on there, and I hope you will come back, because I enjoy making these. So yeah, do come back. So that's it, guys. I will see you soon. I'm sure I will see some of you in the UK Halloween Prop Makers group on Facebook. But otherwise, that's it from me. So have a good week, and remember, stay scary.